2, 3. You're alive. Hello. Welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And it's good to be back with my co-host David Null for a live tonight. Thank you for coming.
As always, we greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator, and we thank you for coming.
Absolutely. It's good to be back and be live again. And I hope you all had a good 4th of July and a good week. I took the week off and was on vacation. So I souped it up. Anyway, I had a great time. I'll be posting some videos from all of that. I got to do everything from this, that, and the other. Even went and seen President Roosevelt, which I'll give you a little bit of video on that sometime soon. But anyway, tonight I'm going to be talking about the mound builders, John Smith, all kinds of good stuff from back in the day. We're going to ask the hard questions of, were the Indians, or was there somebody here before them? And I think we touched on this subject a little bit before, but I got me a new book, and it's this one here, and it's called Indian Horrors or Massacres by the Red Men.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean Massacres by the Red Man, or
by the Red Man? Yes.
Oh,
and this was printed in accordance with it doesn't say, it's like 1890 or something like that. Yeah, if I can find it here. It's a very old book. It's if I got to treat it nice, but the ink is falling off the pages almost. So yeah,
it's very tender.
Yes, it is. So I got to be really careful when I handle it, so it lasts a long time. But it's not important how the book looks. It's what's inside the book that counts.
Yeah.
But anyway, as everybody fills up the chat room and starts coming in, and we're going to have a great show. But I got pictures for you tonight and all kinds of good stuff. Mound Builders of Glore. Now, this book, being old and everything, it really gets into, some things that I thought were true for a long time. Now, I've read stuff and they're like, oh, we have a new theory on this, and the Indians built these mounds and blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And we got the earthworks that form enormous animal effigies that are all over, usually the eastern side of the United States, like the Serpent Mound and things like that.
I've been to Serpent Mound.
And of course, yeah. And there is another one that I found, and it's called the Grave Creek Mound. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Yeah, that's in Virginia, Wheeling, West Virginia. The Grave Creek Mound, 12 miles below Wheeling, Virginia, is 70 feet in height by 900 feet in circumference. The Great it's a pyramid kind of thing. Then there's the Cahokia Mound near St. Louis, was 700 by 500 feet at the base. The works of the Gulf border region are mostly pyramidal in shape and truncated and served as pedestals for temples like the Tolcallis of Mexico and Central America, or the Toltecs or whatever. So anyway, we've seen these mounds plenty of times, and yes, Ariel, go away. Dogs. She wants to get her attention. I give somebody attention, she wants attention back. But anyway, okay. So I have to pull this up and stuff, but anyhow, but that's kind of where we're going to go right now, is to some of these mounds and get right into this. Let's see if I can share, if I remember how to do this. It's been so long. And
Near me over, it's just absolutely due west of me is Milky Mounds.
the Milky Mounds. Ooh, I never heard of that.
Yeah. And
Okay.
it's almost to the Alabama border, like about 20 miles kind of thing, or maybe less. But it's a big mound. Nobody lives in it. It was used, quote, for sacrifice or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the ditch where they dug the dirt right beside it. They literally took the dirt out and made a ravine right beside this thing. And so, you know, a lot of people say, well, where'd they get the dirt? Like Serpent Mound, there's no evidence to me when I walked around of where did they get the dirt? And there was another gentleman that I was standing there and we were chatting back and forth. And he goes, I agree with you. Where'd they get the dirt? They're up here all on this hill. There's a cliff over here. There's a cliff over there. Where did they get the dirt for Serpent Mound? But anyway,
Exactly.
I digress, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
So here's Serpent Mound. Now we've talked about Serpent Mound before, so we're not going to really get into that too terribly much. But I do have some pictures of Serpent Mound. This is an aerial view, maybe an older one, as you can see. And from the air, this is what it looks like. Like you said, it's a cliff over here, over there. It's kind of on top of a hill that way. Where did they get this dirt? You would have literally had to haul it from somewhere, right?
Yeah, when you come in and where the parking lot is and everything from the aerial view, you know, there's just like at Milky Mound, there's obviously a trench where they got the dirt. It's just obvious. But at the Serpent Mound, it's like, you know, you look around and go, where's the ditch or how'd they get it there? And, you know, what picture do you have up? Yeah, let's see. The left side is the tail, right?
Yeah, this is the tail.
Okay, there's a path that goes around the serpent, and down there at the tail, at the very back side, you can see three little things that on the edge of the trees. That's actually a cliff right there.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. Well, you know, you're on top of this hill. You would have had to haul that dirt up there. That's a lot of work. You know,
somewhere.
Yeah, you get up there. It's a pretty good size. You were there. You've seen it.
Yeah.
I mean, those mounds are big. You know, pretty good size. It looks like
they're not real tall. I was disappointed in the fact that I thought the Serpent Mound meant these things were going to be like gigantic. No, they're only a couple of feet tall.
You got to remember too, this has been here for hundreds of years, and just like anything else, it dissipates. I suppose at one point in time it was probably a lot taller, wouldn't you think? Maybe.
I think once the grass started to grow on it, the amount of decay to the mound would have not been as bad, you know what I mean, versus it just being open. But it is a wonder in and of itself to walk around it. And in places the path is a little lower and the profile of the snake seems to be a little higher. But on average, it's maybe 4 foot. Maybe.
Okay.
Well, but now it's wide and it's, you know, I mean, when we were there that day, it was a pain in the neck. The guy was actually mowing the thing. So he was on a mower and riding all over the mounds and, you know, and doing all this stuff. And the noise was like, did you have to pick today? You know, but it was still okay. I want to go back and not be rushed.
Yes. Yeah. That's kind of how it goes, you know, when you go to those places, they got to have some upkeep at some point in time. So,
yep.
Okay, well, here we go. This is another mound. This is called the Alligator Mound.
I will make this comment. If you're ever in the neighborhood up there in Ohio, go see it. It is
Yeah.
it's worth it to go see it.
If anybody's up that way, go there, take some pictures and send them to me. I'd love to show them on the show. Anyway, here's another one. They call this the scorpion or alligator mound. This one here, I found this was in this book too. This is the alligator or licking, the lizard or alligator or licking county in Ohio, 250 feet long.
Oh, it's in Ohio?
Yeah, this one is.
Really? Wow.
Yes. So like I said, there's lots of these. The alligator mound. Here you go. I can't read the words on this, but there you go. Yeah, I found this in this book. These are places Ohio. It says in Ohio Valley Division, we may find the almost innumerable mounds of Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois, and Kentucky, as well as sacred enclosures, fortified hills, etc., which abound everywhere in these states. And yeah, so there you go.
Well, me being a Buckeye from Ohio and having family and stuff up there, and I've asked, and I did not know about that one. Next time I go up there, I'll be sure to try to go see it.
Yeah, there you go. Like I said, there's things out there we don't even know about. Here's this here was the Hopewell interaction sphere, as this is what I found. Now these may be groups of people that were here before the Indians, or advanced societies that built these things, different cultures.
Yeah.
That may I mean, according to this book, and I'll read this to you in a minute, these people might have not been a whole different culture besides the Indian.
Yes.
And you can see the different ones. They got the Havana Hopewell, the Ohio Hopewell, the Grab Orchard culture, the Miller, the Copahan, goes all the way down to these different cultures.
What is that down there? Wait, go back to my area. What is that?
The Swift Creek culture.
Swift?
Swift.
Okay. Wow, that's my area.
Yeah. And each one of these had different things going on as far as I could tell.
Right.
But it just gives you an idea that, in this region here, they were making these, apparently, all over here, but, even down in Louisiana, that's where we find that, here's some more, they call this, Southern Appalachian Mississippian cultures.
Let me interrupt. What time period are we discussing here?
We're talking before the Indians, or probably around 2,000 years ago, kind of thing.
Or maybe probably more like 3,000 or 4,000 if you really want to get.
Yeah, sometime basically before the Indians.
These were ancients before the Indians.
Yes, and I'm going to explain to you in a little bit here, because even these guys back that wrote this book in the 1800s realized that the Indians did not have a culture like, to build these mounds. And, let's see here. Okay, we're going to go through some of this and then I'll read this. But anyway, you can see how they got this cordoned off into these different cultures, because, they were mining, they find in these mounds copper, they find, pottery, they find things that the Indians did not use or did not have. So how did they get that stuff? And here it says here, the specimens have been classified in this talks about the works of the Gulf border region are mostly pyramidal in shape, are served as pedestals or temples in Mexico and Central America. All these specimens have been classified into sacred, miscellaneous enclosures, those for defense, mounds, sacrifice, and temple rites. Okay, judging from the site and the immense size of many of these works, and from various articles found in the mounds, we reach the following conclusion respecting these mysterious people. that they were semi-civilized, living in large stationary communities, cultivating the soil, probably sustaining a maize or Indian corn, that they spun and wove clothes, numerous remains of which have been found, that they modeled clay, carved and the hardest stone into images of animals and of men, that they knew how to mine and smelt ores, especially copper, and quarried various minerals such as mica, stealthy, etc., which they wrought into ornamental objects, and that they manufactured salt by evaporating the brine from saltine substances, and that they had a religion of nature and probably practiced human sacrifice on the numerous remains of fires. Charred bones upon pyramidal temple mounds seem to indicate this. Okay, so you got these mounds, and of course they're all over, but this is what they just described is not what the Indians, they didn't, the Indians had more of a nomadic culture. They moved continuously, right? And even if they did stay for a while, they moved on after a few years. They didn't stay in one spot. They didn't build structures. They built some wigwams and some huts, and had teepees, and they moved on, right?
Well, not the Milky.
Yeah, but I mean, for
they were stationary, as were in Georgia up there where it says the Etowah. I've been to the Etowah mounds and a couple of other mounds in Georgia, the ones that are right around Macon.
Yeah.
And so these folks, they stuck around.
Yeah.
They traveled, they had parties that went out, and hunting parties and gathering parties, but they used the mounds that are the Etowah mounds and so forth. They used them on a regular basis. So if you're using one of these mounds, it's just sort of like a big, it's not a teepee, but it looks like a mound on the outside, but they do have ceremonies on the inside. But so if you're using this thing on a regular basis, that must mean you're sticking around. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it says here, the difficulty of building these structures. Furthermore, it's certain that to build such a vast structure as the platform mound of Cahokia, this is the Cahokia one.
Is it still in Ohio?
No. This one here is, I think, in Mississippi.
Okay.
The Cahokia mound, somewhere there. Okay, or the Grave Creek mound works. They are very large, and it says had been considerably advanced state of society. They must have been subordinate in masses, as well as having cheap food, in order to permit large numbers of men to devote their entire time to working and construction, at the same time be provided with sustenance. As here we are brought at once face to face with that which broadly distinguishes the Indians from these mound builders. Our Indians have never had any cooperation for the purpose of erecting any structure greater than their wigwams, and have never had cultivated the soil except in the smallest patches about their huts. It would therefore have been impossible for these red men or their ancestors to have built the mounds. It would have required a large number of men to erect such vast structures, and the history of the Indians affords no evidence that they have ever undertook any work which demanded the united efforts of multitude of laborers. And I think that's so well said, because we know that most tribes were small, and we know that most tribes fought with other tribes, and in order to build this giant mound, you would have to dedicate thousands of guys to hunting and fishing and stuff to provide food for the thousands of guys building the mound, to maintaining this space that would have been, here's the one in Cahokia. Yeah, the lost city of Cahokia are uncovered in a sprawling metropolis. And, this thing's huge. This would have probably looked like, they said. So you got multiple mounds around here, the giant mound here, a fortress around it. You're going to have lots of people, but in order to have that, you got to bring in people and food and trade and, and things like that. So you have to have a civilization going on that isn't fighting with all the other little tribes. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And for anybody, just think, just take 100 people. All right. Try to feed 100 people for a week.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? To take care of 100 people for a week, that's very difficult even now. So to have 500 or 1,000 folks in one of these communities, think about the amount of stuff they have to do to feed everybody and to take care of them, so it was a great undertaking. And to the point, and I think this is where some of these ancient societies have just disappeared in the Americas. And I'll get to something later on that was discussed and has been out there for a while, but where some of these folks have actually come from. And so, but these mounds here, are similar to what Kolomoki is like. There's one major mound, and then there's several round mounds that were, and one of them was actually excavated, and they put a museum over the thing. And they removed the bodies and everything and buried them properly way back when. But it shows the inside and the layers inside one of the burial mounds, which is very interesting. So, but but anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I got some pictures of that too. We'll get to. But here, listen to this. Contents of the mound. The Indians are proud of their personal freedom. Now, this describes Indians pretty good. The Indians are proud of their personal freedom and are declined to labor. The detesting working in the soil are nomadic, restless, fickle, and improvident. No chief would dare issue a command for his followers to engage in servile work. Furthermore, their objects found in the mounds show an advance in the arts such as American Indians never attained. They never smelted ores, spun cloth, or carved images so beautifully as the mound builders did. Now, last week, we talked about how the Indians were trading for cloth, and cloth was a big trade item, more than even metal. So if they knew how to spin cloth way back then, what happened? That's my question. What happened if they could make cloth and then they couldn't make cloth? What, they just forget how? And then it says, but in some ways, many say perhaps the ancestors of our present Indians were more civilized than they are, and there are specimens of advanced art such as attributed to them. To this I reply, there is nothing to give evidence that the progenitors of the present red men were any more advanced in civilization than the Asian savages from whom they descended. Everything tends to prove that they were entirely distinct in origin from the mound builders. And there you go. Respecting the language of the American savages, it has been asked if our Indians were not the wrecks or more civilized nations. Their language refutes the hypothesis. Every one of its forms is a witness that their ancestors were like themselves, not yet distraught from nature. The origins of the mound builders, having now taken a brief survey of the civilization of the mound builders and having seen it that they are separated from the American Indian by the sharp lines of distinction, we are prepared to answer the question, profounding the early part of this. Okay, they were indeed, they should be, we look to the source such as people as the mound builders, not those They came, if not to those tropical lands, whose gorgeous and magnificent forests, buried cities, speaking of seats of vast and varied indigenous civilizations, equaling or surpassing those of the Yucatans or the Egyptians.
Wait, say that last part again.
Well, they were talking about indigenous civilizations equaling or surpassing those of the Etruscans or the Egyptians. So they're saying that obviously these people came from some that built these mounds came from some other civilization, probably maybe descendants of the Yucatans or the Egyptians. The tropics are the womb of nations, and from these chimes sprung the vulnerable civilizations of the Nile, the Ganges, and so forth, in the New World, cities, and so forth. And they're saying that, whatever happened, these people appeared, and that's kind of where all this civilization happened, is around the center of the globe at some point in time, and it says what is it? Okay. The pyramidal character of these many works of the Mississippi Valley is like that of Central American Toltecs, and there are many more indigenous locations that point to the conclusions that the Aztecs were the people who developed here in North. Basically it's saying that the Aztecs took over the Toltec civilization, which took over another civilization. And they're saying here, as they're already saying in today's modern era, and this is back in the 1800s, saying that these buildings were here before these civilizations took them over. So the Aztecs took over the Toltecs, and the Toltecs took it over from somebody else. So they're basically saying that the pyramids, the structures were already here, and when the Indians showed up, or the new civilization showed up, they just took them over because they were already built. There you go. And that's
Are you going to discuss anything about the tribes in out west?
No. I ain't gonna go there today.
Okay, but I need to, because you mentioned the Egyptians several times.
Oh yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
May I butt in?
Yeah, sure.
There are several people, and I can't remember what I was watching or listening to. The Dark Journalist.
Oh yeah, I love him. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he was discussing in one of his recent ones. I was trying to catch up over the weekend, and it was about, God, I think his name was Powell. He was the guy that went up, and he didn't go up the river, but he went down the Colorado River. He was one of the first people to go down the Colorado River and see everything and mark everything. Yep. And they found a bunch of Egyptian stuff.
Yep.
In the Grand Canyon.
Yes. I listened to that episode too.
You did. Here's the thing, but they found it in the Grand Canyon, but I know folks, I used to, they're all dead now, but down some folks that were fishermen and oyster guys and folks down on the Gulf down there around Carabel and in the Big Bend area, and talking to some of them old timers, and they said, there used to be posts out in, and they were really strange posts, and they had like hieroglyphs on them. And going into the major rivers, like over at Pensacola, they had these things, and just like they would be channel markers. Yep. But they had Egyptian writing on it. And so he said, as a fisherman, we go out almost every day and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, one day we seen this boat that had this crane on it. And he said, they were pulling up the post. He said they went around and pulled up every post that was like leading into Carabel, and then on down the coast, over towards, well, actually, Carabel will be over towards Panama City, and then over to Pensacola, and then over to Mobile Bay. Well, all of these things were, when you think about it, the locals said, we always wondered why there were Egyptian markers. They must have been here a long time ago. That's what the locals said along the coast. But now those posts are gone. And so some of these technologies and things, and we go a step farther in that. So the Egyptians came over, but as Edgar Casey and some other folks have sort of stated, is that, yeah, but there were folks here before the Egyptians got here as well.
Yes, they took over, the Egyptians just took over the pyramids and the stuff. And yeah, they added to it, but they found what they found and they said, hey, look at this stuff and let's build some more. This looks like a great spot, right?
Yeah, so we don't have stone like they have over there.
Yeah.
But so while they were here.
But with those, I want to bring something up about those markers you're talking about.
Go ahead.
So the thing is this is how they erase history. Yep. Because those markers could have been probably out there for, hundreds of years. And
no, thousands of years.
Okay, thousands. Okay,
thousands of years.
Thousands of years before the white man even got here.
Yes.
The thing is nobody could pull them up and they were just there. But then somebody said, hey, we're getting more modernized and somebody's asking questions and we need to put the kiboshes on it. Let's go out there and get rid of that stuff and wipe it from everybody's memory. See, now you remember them
before anybody asked questions.
Before, yeah, or maybe somebody did ask a question and said, "Hey, look at these. Well, let's get rid of them." And
but the locals who knew that there's a post out there, blah blah blah, and they know where they're at. We're a half mile offshore, blah blah blah. So they were true markers.
Well,
but all the locals used them until the U.S. Coast Guard and everybody took over and started, quote, cleaning up. And in their cleanup, they pulled up those posts.
Mm-hmm. But
I wonder if they did it on purpose. I mean,
I'm pretty sure
the locals state they think it was on purpose.
But the thing is the locals know that they were there. But after a generation or so, that'll all be gone.
Well, it's already gone because those old times, I'm 70.
Yeah.
So, with me, who's going to believe me? Well, I had friends on the coast who were fishermen. Some of them were shrimpers, and we sat around and drank a beer and did a fire and ate shrimp, and so, and people have conversations. So that's where I found out about it, going on 30 years ago.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I'm saying is 30 years ago, they're gone. The word is gone. You got no pictures. And in 50 years from now, besides us talking on YouTube about this, there won't be a shred of evidence about it. You know what I'm saying? It'll be gone. And then somebody will say, I read in this journal that there used to be markers out there, but nobody can find them. It's a rumor. It's like these old books I'm reading.
And I think they were stone. I don't think they were wood, because they were, as several of the guys described this one channel marker, they were like, no, it's very distinct.
Well, and that's the thing. It had to be stone. Otherwise it would have
deteriorated.
Deteriorated. Yeah. And it would have been gone for, in no time. So sorry, a wood tick. But that's what I'm saying. It's like these books, like this book here I got from the 1800s. I'm reading in here and they're saying the same thing they're just talking about now that, hey, the mound, they knew in the 1800s that the mound builders were a whole different type of people than the Indians. They figured it out. They weren't stupid. They were there in the 1800s with the Indians saying, there's no way these guys could, their culture does not promote building structures like this. And as far back as their legends and myths go, they never talk. I mean, we've read all the myths and legends and stuff, and they don't talk about building mounds or great cities. Nope. That you think for sure that they would have passed some legend on that, Coyote went to the metropolis of, a Badger. Badger had this great city built, and, he went there and they, threw him out because Crow was, a raven was there leading the way. He was the king of the city or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And with that said, so, and I think there in some of the stories, and it depends on which story, what tribe, and so forth, they'll say they went to a sacred place.
Yeah.
So I think that Serpent Mound, for example, or that other one up there in Ohio that I didn't know about, that someone could say, so they had this meeting or blah, 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 and then they went to this sacred place. They don't mention what it was or whatever. It's just sacred place. So it could be, depending on where the story is, a mound or something like that as a sacred space, place, space. Yeah, about the same thing. But anyway.
Well, but that's the thing is, if the mound was there and you're an Indian and you come into this country and you see this huge mound or this serpent mound on the ground, and you kind of realize that, hey, this is something special right out of the ground. You know what I mean? Look at this. We can see that it, the Indians aren't stupid. They're going to look at it and say, hey, this looks like a serpent, or this mound is in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere. Where did the dirt come from? Why is there a mountain here? This must be a special place. And we're going to screen share to show you people how big this thing is. Look at this. Here's this Cahokia mound. Look how big this is. You're an Indian and you're on a flat plain and you come to this thing, this giant structure, and you're going, holy cow, what's this doing here? You're going to be amazed. You're going to say that's a holy spiritual place or some sort, right?
Yeah. How did it get there?
Exactly.
Is there a picture of that from the top down of that mound?
This is the best I can do. But maybe when the Indians were there, it looked a little bit better because, after hundreds of years and rain and erosion stuff, maybe it looked a little more like this thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is the lost city of Cahokia. Even back in the day when they were drawing, there are no pictures. This is what they were still drawing, how huge it was. You're out there in this field and here's this mountain.
Wait, go back. Yeah, that picture there, is that what it looked like?
This is
The
a
same
drawing.
mound?
This is apparently maybe somebody built a house on top of here or something at one point.
No, but I mean, is that the same mound we were looking at 2 pictures to the right?
Yes, it's supposed to be.
With the stairs going up?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I knew what I was talking about.
like you can see it here.
So that right there is the aerial view of that other one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Basically, it's a bluff in the middle of a field, and like I said, the Indians are going to be out there. They're going to say, "What the fudge is this doing in the middle of a flat plain?"
Yeah, there's nothing large anywhere in the neighborhood when you look at the landscape around it.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that a river in the background, back left? It looks like water back there.
Probably, maybe back
I'm
there.
just curious.
It looks like farm fields back there.
But before that, it looks like a river.
Yeah, there
or
might
a
be
lake
a
or something right there.
river. This is a road, a river. Could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Um,
Can't say for
it's
sure.
interesting how it spills out down there on the right. And if we had a sure enough top view of it, I wonder if it looks like a critter, because where the stairs goes up in the front right there, could that in some weird way been like a turtle head?
Maybe. I mean, we don't know. They're just
I know
guessing
that,
too,
but the way it's shaped, now they got stairs in the middle, but it almost looks like a turtle head in the general shape of the thing.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I agree.
It's not perfect, but generally.
And then again, you can't tell because it's hundreds and hundreds of years of erosion here. You're
Or
talking
thousands,
about thousands.
probably.
Yeah, I should be
Go to
saying
that last picture if you don't mind.
the one before. No, this.
Nope. Yep.
This one.
Nope. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
This
Yeah,
one.
that one.
Yeah.
To see how massive it is.
Yeah, you can see the people up there. So somebody to move this dirt. You're talking even nowadays. You're talking big machinery and days of moving with dump trucks and crap like that to get something like that built.
Weeks and months, if not years.
Yeah, well, and especially
to
the
pile
Indians,
up that much dirt.
Yeah, the Indians didn't have horses, and what are they going to carry it with buckets? On their backs. Yeah, we're gonna get a bunch of guys with buckets, and we're gonna make this mountain. Like it said in there, the chief isn't gonna look at the guys and say, you need to do this, because that's just not the way the Indians were. Each one was a single individual, not a collective. Now, if you said this was done in China, I'd say, yep, I can believe it. They got thousands of those Chinese guys. They all got a bucket and they made a mound. But here in the States, Indians weren't like that. They were in small groups. The chief kind of said, and if you didn't want to do it, you didn't do it, right?
Yeah, but you got to go back before them. So it was a whole different culture that made it.
But that's what I'm saying.
Right.
The guys that built this were not the Indians. That's what they're even saying in this book. They don't
what's an interesting point, and I keep interrupting, but that they haven't found any tools.
Yes,
I mean, there should be like bulldozers and stuff.
Yeah,
there should be cranes. There should be something that said, like over at Kolomoki, there's a ditch right beside the mound.
Yeah.
And there were remnants of baskets and things and pottery and all around the area. So there was a lot of evidence that they built the mound. Okay.
Well, yeah. Well, and see, that's the thing too. I don't disagree.
There's no evidence.
Well, I'm saying I don't disagree that the Indians may have tried to imitate in some sort of way these mounds.
Oh, I would agree with that. I would agree. It's imitation.
We do that today. I mean, look at, you see the pyramids, but then you go to Vegas and what do they got? They're building a pyramid because, you got to have the Pyramid Hotel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so forth. We imitate other things. We build things. The White House, the Capitol building, built like Romans. If
built
somebody,
like the Vatican.
Yeah, the Vatican. If you go to the Vatican or the thing, you would say this must have been the same group of people that built that building.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to move on. This is the Grave Creek Mound in Virginia. This is an old drawn picture from as early as I could get. And you can see somebody built their house there next to this thing, and they put an observatory on the top. I was wondering what this was. This tumulus, located in Moundsville, West Virginia, is the largest conical structure of the entire mound area, being upward of 70 feet in height after Squire and Davis. And you can see they put an observatory up there, The Grave Creek Mound, world famous burial mound, was built by the Adena peoples. This is what they named them, sometime before the Christian era. The mound was originally 69 feet in height, 295 feet in diameter, and was encircled by a moat. there were many mounds in the area, hence the city's name Moundsville. In 1838, the Grave Creek Mound was tunneled into and 2 log tombs with several burial and grave offerings were found. And there's a top view of it.
Wow.
Yeah, there used to be an observatory up here, but now I guess it's not. But you can see it's kind of, but I guess apparently they must have found some stuff inside it.
Yeah.
Old picture of it. The prehistoric world, vanished races. See, even the people back in the day knew that this wasn't built by the Indians. I mean, that's a pretty big mound. This is an old Grave Creek, 1857, earliest photograph. And you can
now that's a real picture right there now.
Yes, it is. And you can see trees growing on it.
They got a fence around it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a serious fence.
Yeah. So you can see that this had,
they probably used that during the Civil War. I'm just sitting here thinking.
That could have been.
Because of the high point up there. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, like I said, if there's trees growing on it like this, these are pretty good sized trees. They've been there for 50, 80 years, already. Yep. Anyway, here we go with the Grave Creek Mound Archaeological Complex from the archives. This 1848 cross section of the Grave Creek Mound depicts burial chambers. So apparently they went down in there and found some burial chambers in 1848. This was some of the things they might have found there. I didn't really say this are some of the items they found in there. I'm not sure, it didn't really explicitly say. Here's a cross section of it, inside it, what they believe's inside.
Well, now they can use that tomography, is it, where they, do sound in the earth and can take pictures like a sonogram. So, that might be that.
Yeah. The Grave Creek Mound Complex. And there you go. Largest in the nation. And that's it for that one. Okay. Now you got the mounds. Now we're going to explain to you the remnants of those people. So I was reading this new book, I'm going through this, and it was talking about all these guys, Hudson and Fernando Soto and all of these. And then I got to this guy here, John Smith, Captain John Smith. And he seemed...
Is that the same Captain John Smith?
Yes, Captain John Smith. And you know which guy this guy is, right?
With Pocahontas and everything?
Yes. Let's see. The best there John Smith reached Virginia. He okay, so yes, this is the guy. And this guy, he was a lucky son of a gun. Put it that way. In 1606, as a member of a party he reached Virginia. He was a member of the party of Bartholomew Godsnald. There are brief accounts, however, of the encounters with the Indians before this time. Sir Richard Greenville in 1885 sailed to Virginia and left 100 men to form a settlement in Roanoke. And that's this guy here, Richard Greenville. He established the city of Roanoke, which you all know disappeared. They returned in 1 year, within a year, and everybody had disappeared.
Aliens.
Yeah. The Englishmen, in one of their exploring expeditions, committed another of the characteristics and unjustifiable outrages of the first whites in the country, in burning the entire town and destroying the cornfields of some Indians who had stolen a silver cup. Yeah.
Oh, I
So,
remember that story.
yeah.
The silver cup.
Yeah, they stole a silver cup and he went and burned their cornfields, villages. Captain John Smith gives some interesting statements relative to the customs of these Virginia savages as they exited before being modified by contact with the Europeans. Let's see, back to John Smith. Okay, oh, we don't want to go there. Here's John Smith. Of the Susquehannocks, Smith says, such a great and well-proportioned men are seldom seen, for they seem like, now this is very important. This is why I'm reading this. This is very, very important. For they seem like giants to the English. For their language, it may well be seen them their proportions, sounding from them as a voice in a vault. How does so they must have had real deep voices, right? A voice in a vault. Okay. Yeah, exactly. One of the chiefs measured, now listen to this. One of the chiefs measured 3/4 of a yard about the calf of his leg, and all the rest of his limbs so answerable to the proportion that he seemed the goodliest man we ever beheld. Listen to this. 3/4 of a yard. What's 3/4 of a yard?
Well, if it's 3 feet.
That's like 2.5. 2.5 feet to about the calf of his leg. So up to 2.5 feet to the calf of his leg. You're talking about a big ass guy. Either way.
To the calf?
Yeah, it says 3/4 of a yard about the calf of his leg.
About the calf of his leg.
See, that's where it gets confusing. About up to the knee or about the calf of his leg,
Well,
where
would be 2.5 feet. If it was the calf of his leg, that's a big bone.
Well, exactly.
And what if it's 2.5 feet below, till you get to the calf? So that's a long way. So either way, you're talking about somebody that's pretty tall.
Yeah, well, exactly. And the rest of his limbs so answerable to the proportion, basically his proportion, that way, that he seemed the goodliest man we ever beheld. His hair, the one side was long, the other shorn, close with a ridge like a cock's comb. The people were dressed in the skins of wild animals, some having caskets made a bear's head. Now this is good. You'll get this part. Made of bear's heads and skins, that a man's head goes through the skin's neck and the ears of the bear fastened to his shoulders, the nose and teeth hanging down his breast. Another bear's face split behind him, and at the end of the nose hung a paw. One had the head of a wolf hanging in a chain for a jewel. His tobacco pipe, 3/4 of a yard long, prettily carved with a bird or a deer or some such device at the great end, sufficient to beat out one's brains. But a tobacco pipe 3/4 of a yard. So, you're talking a pipe that's, 2.5 feet long, 2.5.
Yeah.
2.5
feet long.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're wearing a wolf's head in a chain for a jewel around your neck, you better be a pretty big guy to carry that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A wolf's head's pretty big. You know, it says strange ornaments sometimes would be seen as okay. Sometimes would be seen a garment of feathers, neatly and thickly woven together. Tattooing and painting were, of course, prevalent. It is difficult to credit some of the stories told by Smith, as, for instance, that some of the Indians wear in the holes bored in their ears a small green and yellow colored snake, nearly a yard in length. Which,
what?
Yeah.
No, what? And
Okay,
what is it that's a yard in length?
Some of the Indians wear in the holes bored in their ears a small green and yellow colored snake.
Snake?
Snake, nearly a yard in length, which crawling and lapping herself about his neck sometimes would familiarly kiss his lips. So basically, they're wearing something in their ears that's long, green and yellow, and wiggles or crawls of some sort. That's, I don't think it was a real live snake, but it must have been something.
If it wiggled over and kissed him, it sounds like a live snake to me.
Yeah, something
but
weird.
There are a lot of snakes that aren't very big around. There are ringneck snakes, and there are different kinds that I've worked with people with, herpetologists that, had different kinds of snakes, and they'd call around. I mean, I got snakes in the house sometimes. I wish they'd catch that mouse that just showed up on my table over here.
Well, there you go. Yeah. But it said they were nearly a yard in length. That's 3 feet long.
Yep.
Holy cow, you're wearing a snake that's 3, in your ear. Anyway, the wigwams of some mulberry, about the wigwams of some mulberry trees were planted. Captain Smith enumerates many of the wild fruits and animals which they had. It is easy to recognize the persimmon in the puchkaman, whose fruit is like a meldalar. I don't know what that means. It is the first green, then yellow, turning to red when ripe. Let's see. Anyway, he goes on about this Smith guy was really lucky. He sailed down the river. He sailed down the river from Jamestown, and during his voyage down the river, a group of his men were caught and taken prisoner. George Gassan was taken prisoner, the savage having compelled him to reveal the intentions of Smith, then put him to death in the most fiendish manner, cutting off his limbs at the joints with shells and burning them before his face. Not daring to attack the boat's crew, they set out to pursue the pursuit of Smith. Coming upon the party among the marshes, they shot the 2 Englishmen as they were sleeping by the canoe, with arrows. They surrounded Smith, who had gone out with one of his guides in search of game. The gallant captain bound an Indian fast to his arm with a garter to protect himself from the arrows of his 200 howling enemies. He killed 3 of them and wounded several others. The savages stood at a distance in dismay at the execution of the gun. Unfortunately, in retreating, Smith became bemired. He got in the mud of a creek and becoming stiff. Now, this is funny. He became stiff with cold and was obliged to lay down his arms. The delighted savages took him to the fire and restored animation to his limbs by rubbing them. Smith thereupon endeavored to consolate the king, Opachakanoff, by presenting him with an ivory pocket compass and explaining its use in admiring the crowd. They then led him away to their village in triumph. Each warrior was gratitudely painted, and each had a bow in his hand, and tied on his head the dried skin of a bird, with the wings spread, a piece a piece of copper, a white shell, a long feather with a small rattle growing at the tails of their snakes, tied to it, or some similar toy. So basically they had something on those things in their ears tied to their whatever, you know what I mean? Making noise, rattles or whatever. Oh, we don't need that part no more. Okay. So can you imagine that, here he is, he's up the creek, but he's giving him this stuff. One of the old warriors whose son had been wounded by Smith's gun could scarcely be restrained from killing the prisoner, who, however, informed them he had at Jamestown a powerful medicine which would cure him. So I imagine they had some kind of because his son was shot and he was wanting to kill Smith. Messengers were sent with a letter written on a part of a table book, whatever that was. It just says whatever that was. To the astonishment of the Indians, the speaking paper accomplished its mission. So they had no idea what letters or writing were. So it tells you what kind of, these people weren't intelligent enough. I mean, they didn't have the communication to write stuff down. So how could they build these big mounds without any kind of communication like that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because it takes a bit of an engineering mind.
Yeah, I mean,
where are you going to get the dirt? How are you going to tote it? Who's going to tote it?
Yeah, and I'm sure
where are you going to put it? How big is it going to be? Where do you start? I mean, all that.
Yeah, and exactly. How do you communicate with all those people at the same time, yelling? Hey, you, move over there. Yo, hey, you. You know what I'm saying? And
they didn't have an architect.
Yeah, exactly. You had to have some sort of, and I'm sure these mounds are probably lined up with the moon, the sun, and the stars some way. Maybe I don't know.
I'm not. Everybody speculates. Oh, there was sacrifices on top. Are you sure? I mean, it's all savages and sacrifices. Okay.
Yeah. Well, they gotta justify all that stuff. Okay. So to ascertain the real feelings of Smith towards the incantation was held. Having seated him on a mat before the fire of one of their large wigwams, all went out. Presently, a great grim fellow came skipping in, all painted over with coal, mingled with oil, wearing many snakes and weasel skins stuffed with moss, and their tails tied together so as to meet on the crown of his head in a tassel round about which was a coronet of feathers. Can you imagine what that guy looked like? Snake skins and weasel skins and feathers on his head. Oh my gosh.
And he's about 7 foot tall.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, also, the English back then were not very tall folks.
That's right.
I mean, we really weren't. I mean, some of the vessels and the boats and stuff, and the doorways are only like 5.5 feet tall, and you go, everybody bumps their head. And but them folks back in them days weren't very tall, really.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
5'5" was probably a tall person.
Yeah.
A 6 foot person was a giant to them.
Exactly. Rattle. Okay, shoulder and manner covering his face. With a hellish voice and a rattle in his hand, he sprinkled a circle of meal about the fire and then concluded his conjure. So he was the medicine man. After visiting the court of the grand monarch Powhatan and holding long conversations with the famous king, Smith was finally released on the condition of presenting the king with 2 great guns and a millstone. On reaching Jamestown, the 2 guns were brought forth, but the guides, who were so terrified by the discharge of the stones among the branches of a ice-covered tree, that they were glad to take trinkets in place of such fearful engines. Smith now held the hearts of his savages, and it was well that he did, otherwise a little colony might have perished in starvation. Let's see, Pocahontas, it goes on, it says here, now listen to this. This was interesting. This is the first time I've ever heard this. And this is about Pocahontas, right? And we all know the story of Pocahontas, right? She saved Smith. It is related that every 4 or 5 days, the noble little Pocahontas, who was but 10 years old at that time, would appear on an errand of mercy, accompanied by attendants carrying provisions. I have not given the story of the saving of Smith's life by this little maiden, both because of its extreme familiarity and for the reason that the latterly strong historic doubt has been entertained as to its truth. This is the first time I've ever heard that might not even be true.
And this was in 18 what?
Like 1888 or something like that.
Okay.
So they're saying that, yeah, that story might be kind of made up. And
the way it was presented to me, back in the history classes, is this young maiden. Well, they didn't say she was 10 years old.
Yeah.
They assumed that she was like 17 or something, and this maiden. And, if she was only 10 years old, hey there, dude, what are you doing with a 10-year-old? Didn't he marry her or something later on? Or
well, that's the thing. He didn't marry her. We all think, oh yeah, he married Pocahontas.
But the story back when I was growing up, it was.
Yes, exactly. Let's see.
So if that was true, he married a 10-year-old and lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
What they said back in the day.
Okay, so this Smith guy, he was quite the guy. He bartered with Powhatan for corn, and I think I told this story once before where he made the deal of some beads, some blue beads, and
Right.
Powhatan gave him all the corn he wanted for these blue beads. Only the king should have, because it's the only blue beads there was. Okay. And somehow he escaped getting shot. Smith did. Let's see. Here's a good one. Smith and his. Oh, okay. So here's where Pocahontas comes in. The old acquaintance of the English, Opa Chekhanoff, also proved faithless, decoying Smith and his old 15 into his house. He was profuse in his offers of provisions and friendship, but in the meantime, an ambush had scoundreled the house. Smith was urged to come out to the door to receive his presents, but he saw that the bait was guarded with at least 200 men and 30 lying under a great tree, placed offwards as a barricade, each his arrow notched, ready to shoot. Oh my gosh, I'm Smith, I'm looking out there thinking, I'm gonna die. Smith perceived.
Remember that song, Please, Mr. Custer, I don't want to go, and all the arrows and everything. Yeah. When you say that, I think about that song. And I've seen some movies. If you've ever watched a movie with the Vikings or any of these folks back, the Chinese, the amount of arrows. If 20 guys are shooting arrows and you look up, you're not going to get very far. You're probably going to get hit.
Yeah, wasn't that movie Braveheart where they're shooting the arrows and they hold their little things up and they're like, oh, and 1,000 arrows rain down on them. Like, how do you survive that? Jeez.
That's what shields were for, and they used to get together and put their shields up. But even through, there were so many arrows that when they would sneak through, and one of the reasons somebody was talking about, the reason that the the knights of old wore those, you know, masks and everything with the tiny slits.
Yeah.
They couldn't actually fight in them, but when they charged the wall and there were arrows coming, they didn't want an arrow to hit them in the face or in the eye.
Yeah.
So when they went into battle, they'd throw their mask back, kind of thing, because there was a less chance of getting hit by an arrow. But they couldn't fight with the damn things with little tiny slits, you know. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So but the helmets were because of the arrows. They wore them so they didn't get hit by an arrow in the eye. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Scotty Boy says fighting in the dark. Yep. Lucky says John Rolfe. We'll get to John Rolfe in a second here. Okay, so here's the thing. So Smith perceived, you know, they should have made a movie about this guy, because this guy here is just like some superhero. I swear, he's got more adventures than you could shake a stick at. Smith, perceiving the plan to betray him, sprang upon the king, Powhatan, seizing him by the hair and holding a pistol to his breast, led him forth. You know, I'll shoot you, holding him by his hair in the back, you know. Jesus. We're making a terrible speech before the people. He succeeded in gaining peace and provisions. Several incidents occurred about this time which tended to establish the power of Smith over the savages. One was an explosion of a quantity of gunpowder which the Indians were trying to dry upon a plate of armor, as they had seen the English do. Another was an affair of a pistol and a charcoal. The Indian had stole one of these weapons. His two brothers were seized by Smith as pledges. One of them was sent in search of the pistol and told that his brother would be hanged in 12 hours if it were not returned. The one who was retained was placed in a dungeon. Smith, pitying the poor naked savage, sent him some food, some charcoal for a fire. Toward midnight, the brother returned with the weapon, but the poor fellow in the dungeon was found stupefied by the charcoal and terribly burned. Burned himself with the charcoal. Jeez. The lamentations of the brother were so touching that Smith promised him he would abstain from future thefts, and he would restore the captive to life. This was accomplished by the proper means, and the rumor spread like wildfire that the white chief could bring the dead to life. These and many other such incidents so amazed and frightened Powhatan and all his people that they came in from all quarters, returning stolen property and the land, says the narrative, because absolutely as free for us as for themselves.
Well, see, now that's where propaganda works. So they started a rumor that he could raise the dead, and everybody got scared as crap and brought the stuff back. But at the same time, you know, he showed Powhatan, you know, hey, he's a hostage taker. I mean, he kidnapped the guy and held him at gunpoint.
Yeah.
You know, come on, you know, you know, I mean,
and not just anybody, the chief.
The chief, right? The dude, the king.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what? Grabbed him by the hair, you know. So I mean, we stop and think, you know, oh, it was all gravy back in them days or whatever. But you know, he was actually to do that to the chief. He was brutal.
Well, yeah,
he was brutal. I mean, just. Like, okay, you couldn't work it out some other way, you know? Nope, he had to grab him by the hair and put a pistol to him.
This guy is what they make TV shows out of. I mean, this guy was the real deal. In with the Indian. There's 200 Indians with arrows pointed at me. What the fudge am I gonna do?
Yeah, it's like Dirty Harry, make my day. Go ahead, make my day. You know, you know, is there one in here? I mean, you punk, you know.
I got one. You know, it just proves that the guy with the gun is. You got one gun and one. I mean, those guns only shot one bullet.
Right.
I mean,
he had to stuff them, and back those were flintlock.
Yeah, yeah.
So well, they went click, pow. They didn't go bang. They went click, pow, and there's a big puff of smoke, you know.
Well,
And there was one bullet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if those Indians, let the guy get killed. We got 200 arrows. He's going to be dead in a minute. You know what I mean? Okay, now we're going to get to Pocahontas. After his departure, okay, so Smith, John Smith, or Captain Smith, he was hurt. He met with a terrible accident in 1609 by firing a bag of gunpowder. It was so fearfully torn and burned, he leaped into the river and was with difficulty rescued from drowning. He was obligated to go back to England to procure the needed medical assistance and was never able to revisit the colony, which he had helped to found. So even though he got burned, he couldn't cure himself good enough, come back. After
his powder burned his face.
Yes.
So when it went to fire, it basically backfired. And back in them days, gunpowder was really crude.
Yeah.
Really crude.
Yeah.
And so it's much refined nowadays, but so it backfired on him, and it did with other people do. Backfiring of those old weapons was common. And so imagine having this massive gunpowder land on your face that's burning and you can't put it out. So it must have hurt pretty bad.
He jumped in the river. Anyway. Yeah. Okay, so after his departures, things went rapidly to wreck and ruin, and there was a general revolt of the Indians. In 1613, Pocahontas was captured and held as a hostage. While she was at Jamestown, a young Englishman, John Rolfe, became passionately attached. And this shoots the whole.
So how old is she now?
She's like 18, 16, 17, something like that. I'm
okay.
Not sure. Yeah, how old? Hang on a second. Here we go. Yeah. Okay, this is the one I want. Okay, I got too many things up. I gotta get rid of that. I gotta stop sharing. Got to get back to
I was just thinking, that you said she was 10 years old, and then so a few years later she must have been at least 16 then.
16 or 18 or something like that. Yeah,
I think she was at least 16ish.
18. I think maybe she'd have been 18.
Yeah, okay.
Wreck and ruin. Okay, in 1613, Pocahontas was captured and held as hostage. While she was at Jamestown, a young Englishman, John Rolfe, became passionately attached to her, and on the 1st of April, they were married. They excited great attention everywhere, even about court, where Captain Smith made a speech about her before the Queen. This interesting little woman died in 1617. So she didn't make it very long. She got married, went back to England, and on her return trip to revisit America, she died. But she did have one child, Thomas Rolfe, who afterward lived in Virginia and to whom many old Virginia families still trace their origin. Powhatan, her father, died a year later. So he died in 1618. So there you go. There is the story, and there's Pocahontas, and she was a captive that fell in love with her captor, and you don't think about it, but that's kind of how it went. But there you go. And for all of John Lucky Smith says John Rolfe was 29 and Pocahontas was 18. There you go.
So there you go.
Yeah. Lucky
well, he
Smith
wasn't robbing the cradle because it was common for them to, marry a 15-year-old,
Yeah, that's true. Lucky Stone says Smith was a notorious liar and bragger, made up the whole story of his rescue by Pocahontas. After many years, none of Smith's friends and associates knew of the episode. So there you go. But anyhow, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I really like this new book I got. like I said, I love how I can find these old books, find these stories that nobody knows. I mean, or no, they know of, but then there's all these little extras, because where did you hear ever where Smith really tells about the way? I love the descriptions they use, like how tall and big were these Indians.
Right.
Now here's the thing I want to get to. This is why I brought up the John Smith thing, is because we're talking about the mound builders, right? And all of a sudden you think, okay, like you said, the English guys were small. They're going to be 5 foot tall, 5.5 foot tall, whatever. But then you come up to these Indians and they're 7 foot tall. Okay. Are they the descendants of the mound builders? And if they are, were the mound builders themselves even bigger? Were these the giants they talk about in the old days? You see where I'm getting here?
Yeah,
because
but no, the giants were really big.
But
They
that's
were giants, but these were giants among men, but not giants. Okay. 7 foot tall is one thing, but some of these giants were like 20 feet tall.
Well, but I'm saying is, could they
there
have
was a
been
big,
a descendant, a distant relative, interbred with some of the giants to give them that 7 feet tallness? You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Not that
maybe,
you're a
maybe I would say maybe. But I went to my swimming exercise today, and there was a young black lady that came out of the gym from being worked on from a knee injury, and she was taller than me. She was at least 6'6" or 6'2", and just a beautiful young lady. But does that mean she was a descendant from the giants because she's so tall?
Yeah, but on the scale of things, people are taller nowadays.
I would say in general, yeah, something has happened along the line where there are a lot more tall people these days. I would agree.
Well, they were saying like Abraham Lincoln was 6 foot tall, and they thought he was a giant. He was a really big guy because he was 6 foot tall. I mean, that's telling you something. Like, well, if everybody's 5 foot tall and you're 6 foot tall, back in that's only in the 1800s, but I'm talking, we're talking John Smith's probably 5 foot tall and comes across a 7 foot tall guy. You're like, where did you get the genes to be 7 foot tall?
Yeah.
That's
when I was in high school, I think there were 130 of us in our senior in that class, at Tampa Catholic. But so with the guys, when they lined us all up, I was one of the tallest, and I was just like that much under 6 foot tall.
Yep.
And so it's like, so I was one of the tallest in the class.
Yep.
What? And I, 6 foot, wow, holy crap. You look around and I could see the tops of everybody else's head, but I'm not tall, and I've shrunk since my back surgery, but,
I agree with you.
What is who, I guess it's the perception of who is the tallest, or is he a giant, or, wow, I was just, average height, I thought.
Well, and that's the thing. When I was in school, for the first probably till I was like in 4th or 5th grade, I was the tallest kid in the class. And then after that, there was a couple other kids that started growing more. But I was still, even when I got into high school, I was one of the big tall kids, right? Now, just like you, and and I was a tall guy. Now I came out to North Dakota, right? And even my buddy who came to visit me out here, when I came out to North Dakota, I figured I'm a big guy, being 6'1". And everybody out here is tall. I mean, I don't know where they all came from, but everybody was tall. I mean, everybody I was working with was taller than me. I felt like the short guy. And when my buddy came out here and we went to the grocery store one day, and he says to me, "Oh, I went one way and he went the other, and he was like, I don't have to worry, I'll find him because, uh, you know, uh, I'm the tall guy, and he just has to look around the store for the tall guy. But then when he got there, he started looking around, and everybody's huge. He realizes that everybody's huge. I mean, there's 6.5 to 7 foot tall guys out here, most of them.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but they are. I mean, everybody's taller than me. I'm the short guy.
Well, the Lakota, some of the Lakotas that I've known, they mostly from South Dakota and off the res down there, but they were all 6'2" or taller. And this one guy that I knew, they called him Bear, and he literally wore a bear skin, a full bear skin with the head and everything.
Yep.
And and he was impressive. He was huge, and he wasn't the biggest guy. There were guys bigger than him. And so whatever it is, for those, I'm going to use the word class of people for, whether it be a tribe or, but if they intermingled with some of these really tall Indians that were that's just how tall they were. Yeah. I mean, still now there's still well over 6 foot tall, and they're big and muscular, and so I think that's just how they were and still are. So those genes have just passed down, and between little intermingling and with the whites and some of the things, that's how tall they are.
Yeah,
because that's how tall they've always been. I met at one of the council things I did years ago in Tennessee. There were some folks that came down from Canada, and these ladies were talking about how the huts, were so tall, and how they had to climb up through the hole in the wintertime and all that kind of stuff. But all these ladies from this particular tribe, they were great, big and tall, beautiful, but they were all 6'2" or 3. I had to look up at every one of them.
Well, like I said,
and they were from Canada,
Yeah. No, but I totally believe that, because like I said, if there were giants back in the day, there might have been some intermingling breeding.
Oh yeah, probably, depending on how big the giant was, but yeah.
But you're we're talking, thousands of years ago. And the remnants of that is these people being much taller, like Mangus Coloradus. He was remember we talked about him. He was an Apache, and he was like 7 foot tall. And remember that other guy I did a story on with Ponce de Leon, who came over here, and the guy was so big that they couldn't find a horse almost for him. He was riding the horse like it was a pony. His feet were dragging on the ground.
Right.
That had to be a big ass guy.
Yeah.
I mean, they said he was like a giant.
And think about, I was just had this thought, and think about, the difference in sizes from the Englishman or even the Spaniard, I'll just say Europeans, and being of smaller stature, and it kind of shows up in Mexicans. There are a lot of Mexicans that, I mean, these folks are, 5.5 feet tall is a tall Mexican, and I see them in stores and stuff, and people that I've known, and none of them are very tall.
Yeah.
But so imagine if there's the Plains Indians guys who are 6'6", pushing 7 foot tall, out there chasing buffalo. Okay. Now you get an Englishman who's 5'3", trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Just think about that. It'd be like a midget, chasing, so I can imagine how impending, how imposing a Native American to a little short, English, European guy would be. Holy crap. you know.
Yeah, well, exactly. But see, here's the thing too, and is that there's myths and tales in North American Indian stories about giants, right?
Yes.
But when you get to South America, there's not tales of giants. They don't have those myths and tales of giants in the, the Aztec world or the Inca world. There wasn't, they didn't talk about that. You know what I'm saying? And that's maybe why those people are smaller people.
I think there are some tales around Machu Picchu kind of thing of, sky beings who were giants.
Yeah, well, maybe so. Yeah, but
okay,
but
as far as there being giants on the ground kind of thing, there, because Machu Picchu's, that's some weird stuff with all them rocks up there.
Yeah.
How'd that mess get up there?
Well,
and to me, the simple answer is giants.
Well, and I agree with that. But I'm saying is they don't have the myths and tales about, giants and killing giants, that giants were roaming around and doing all these things like the North American Indians
and
did.
Eating people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, these were different kinds of giants, and I can't remember exactly, but somewhere along the line, I remember them saying something that, like the things that are on the mountains down there, that something that depicted, a giant or a tall person or something, and them folks down there, they're really short as well.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying is I think maybe the North American Indians did some crossbreeding, whereas they didn't have the chance down in South America to do that because they just weren't down there, So I mean, that's just my theory. That's my theory.
I would agree with you mostly, and I would say that it depended on the size of the giant. If it was a 20-foot giant, I don't think he intermingled with.
No.
But if he was 10 foot tall, maybe, because when you look at some of the tribes still in Africa, them folks, I can't remember the name of the tribe, but if there's one under 7 foot tall, he's a midget.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the women too. These people are huge, and they've been this way the whole lineage. So wherever they started back, the Watusi group or something anyway, but there are several tribes in Africa that are really tall.
Oh yeah,
really tall.
Yeah,
and they've been that way for as long as they can remember.
And the thing is those tribes stay that way because they don't really get out and intermingle. They stay as a tribe, just like the pygmies. They ain't going and meeting up with the tall guys out there. They're staying in their little Congo area. You know what I mean? It's just weird but that's kind of like the Indians. They kind of stayed in the spots. You didn't get the Iroquois taking trips down to Mexico.
I think all of the tribes intermingled. I
mean, some sort
in Africa, there was a runner between villages and stuff. He carried messages, and he saw this little cutie in the next village over, and they hit it off. And I think it was done, naturally,
Well,
two people fell in love, or back in the day, it was sort of like some of the Indians, how many women did you sleep with? I got them recorded here on this little, thingy here. And so they just casual sex was like okie dokie. There was the morals and mores were much different and still are in some ways. So I think there was a lot of intermingling just because of Mother Nature. Ooh, look at that girl over there. Hey, buddy, you want to have a good time, and off to the wigwam they go. Or wherever.
And I get that. Well, they would steal women from one tribe and go take them there, and they'd have multiple wives and things like that. And I get that. And
if they took slaves from another, if there was a war at all and they took slaves, and they absolutely used them slaves as concubines, and so they absolutely interbred.
Well, yeah, but it isn't kind of the kind of interbreeding we have today where, today you're in New York and tomorrow you could be in California, or you meet somebody on the internet and you move 10,000 miles away to see them, kind of thing, like, you know what I'm saying, or another
Yeah.
country, and hey, I'm gonna just go over to, such and such country and ship me over a wife.
Well, yeah, but it was very common for a long time. I mean, back in the days of the gold rush and stuff.
Yeah.
There were, they were, and there were women who were like, I just want to get out of here, and if some guy will marry me, I'll take him.
Oh, they did the mail order brides back then.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I tried mail order bride one time on the internet with one of them apps, and you know,
Yeah,
but you
yeah.
never know, man. You never know. But anyway, at least you didn't try to kill me like my
Yeah.
last wife tried to do. So, but in all of this, and I lost my place. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, but that was a real thing. Mail order brides,
Oh
but
yeah,
but still you're most of those people were, coming from the same area too. These guys would go out west. They came from England or was, Germany or wherever they came from. They went out west, and the lady was doing the same thing, kind of deal. So, it wasn't so bad because they weren't originally from, say, Nevada. I'm originally from Nevada, and then you came from New York. No, you're from New York too. Kind of, you know what I'm saying. But anyway.
yeah. Well, let me add this little bit here, and
Yeah.
we're sort of getting long in the tooth, by the way.
We got to get on. What about I got your thing up for the story and everything. It's been a little bit slow.
Yeah. Here, let me tell you what page, and while I'm yakking about this for a minute,
go ahead.
and this will sort of be a segue out of it. But a lot of folks know who Graham Hancock is.
Oh yeah.
And the things that he's been the things that he's been studying with the pyramids and stuff. It's page 116 in the book.
Okay, got it.
Okay, cool beans. So, but some of the information that's in the Smithsonian and also things that have been covered up, have this Egyptian thing on them. And they're, like I was discussing with the stone posts out in the Gulf of Mexico as channel markers into these major rivers,
Yep.
And so that means that there were Egyptians in South Georgia. But it goes back further than that because, listen to dark journalists, but also from what Casey said, it was the Atlanteans who were actually here first.
Well, and see that's
and the Egyptians, but the Atlanteans. Let's take this back a little further. You know what I mean? So in talking about ancestors and ancients and so forth. So who was here before the Egyptians? Who was here before that? It might have been the Atlanteans.
Yeah, well, and that's just what this book said. It said whoever these mound builders were, they were probably, on related or came from or, were from that same group of people who were the Egyptians,
right?
Yucatans. So it was the same group of people because they were all building pyramids and they were all building mounds, and they were just in a different area. They didn't have the granite and the stone stuff to build a pyramid with. They had dirt, and wood. Whereas in Egypt, you got to use what you got, which is rocks, Anyway, okay, I am ready. We got people in the chat. We got a whole group of people. We got Chloe and Scotty Boy, Mark the Spark, Ark. Chloe says she something about don't sell it or something. Point them if it gets to the point of a mail order bride. I'm not a looker, but I have a good heart. I know you do, Chloe. I'm sure you would be taken up in a hurry.
I
Anyway,
want to be a mail order bride.
got Aaron's Energy, Michelle Can-Am Free, much love to you. We got The Way. This Lucky Stone is in the house. Thank you for all your contribution. Lady Free Flow, which is Lady Spellbreaker. Anyway, Susie Q, hope she's still listening. Jackie J, Witchy Moon, and
Thank you, all of you.
And Fulcrum Integrity Lighthouse. Yes, thank you for coming tonight. I think that's it that I have seen. And anyway, I appreciate each and every one of you for coming tonight and donating your valuable time to listen to me. Anyway, yeah. Huh?
I mean, we can get into some really strange discussions, you and I. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, but you know, like I said, I try to work it all together when I read these books, and I realize that back in the 1800s, they
were aware of these things.
Yeah, and today it's like the news or these articles that they write, it's like we just discovered that these mounds were built by, somebody might have been related to the Egyptians. Well, and they might not have been built by the Indians. Like right. they knew that 150, 200 years ago, man.
Yeah.
Okay, what's new? Did you figure out? You're just repeating something. It'd be like me reading this book and then writing an article on it saying, that the mound builders couldn't have been the Indians because, the Indians are just nomadic. They build, wigwams and grow a little bit of food for themselves. And these mound builders would have had to have, hundreds of people building
or thousands,
thousands, and
100 people would be digging and stuff, but there'd be all the other people who did the supporting and brought the food in and did the hunting and did, keep them 100 people busy,
And they would have had like you said, you can't build a mound like that without having an architect or an engineer of some sort. And then in order to have that, you have to have measurement. You have to have language. You can't just be saying, you go that way, 3 arms lengths, right. This way. You go that way, 2 arm lengths.
Well, they actually use the body for measuring as a literal measuring stick, but here's the thing though, like for example, some of these mounds are aligned north and south. So who gave them a compass? Most of them didn't know what a compass was.
Yes.
Okay, so they aligned it somewhere. Were they just flipping lucky? Well, but here's the thing though, it like Kolomoki mounds. The stairs going up to the top of it are due west.
Yeah.
So when you sit up there at night or in the evening and watch the sun go down, it'd be an idiot to go, hey, look, sun go down. We build this, we build the facing this way. Oh, okay, I can get that. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but they did face it towards the sundown, and that's the major face. The other side is towards the woods and is nondescript, and but the side with the stairs going up is obviously that's where they wanted everybody to pay attention to. Yeah,
exactly. So you, like I said, you still had to have an architect and engineer that.
Somebody had to plan it. Why are we facing it west? What's the deal? How tall is this thing going to be? How many baskets? Where are we going to get the dirt? Well, there's a trench where they dug the dirt at Kolomoki.
Yeah, and it all had
with these other mounds.
It had to all be coordinated, and then with a purpose. Oh, we're just going to build a mound because we feel like it.
Right.
You're talking like it said, the chief is not going to ask his few natives that he's got, hey, we're all going to get together. We're going to start digging this mound over here just because I said so. I'm the chief. And there you go.
But Kolomoki is kind of sort of an exception in this. But I think it was a copycat. I think they were copying somebody seen another mound someplace else and they said, ooh, we want one too.
Yeah.
Because the Milky Indians date back at least 12 or 1300 years because of the archaeological things they found in pottery and such. But, you know, you can actually see the scrub marks, you know, in pieces of basket and things that were remnants of from where they dug right behind it. If you're looking at the stairs, it would be to the right and back.
Yeah.
And there's the road that comes along it, and there's a little ravine there, and that's where they took the dirt from.
Yeah.
But how many people did it take to dig that ravine and to pile it up that high? You know, it would have took a bunch of Indians, you know, a pretty good while, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Working together with a plan, etc. Okay, I got it pulled up if you're ready.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Oh, to segue out of this though, about the Egyptians.
Yes.
There's the Hopi still claim that the sky gods visited them. And there's a lot of evidence that, you know, that the Atlanteans were actually ET. Okay.
Yeah.
And because where did the Atlanteans get the technology? They got it from, you know, their brothers and sisters from the stars. And I know people don't want to accept that, but there's too much evidence that we were helped by angels, by sky beings, by all of these other entities and things. And these folks go back 20, 30,000 years or more. It ain't none of this 5,000 or 6,000 years. There's, you know, Göbekli Tepe and some of these other places that are so ancient. There ain't no way it's just 5,000 or 10,000 years old.
Well, and that's the thing. Was there a, you know, more advanced civilization on Earth, you know, thousands and thousands of years ago, and that degraded due to catastrophes, cataclysms, war, you know, things like that. And then we ended up going backwards.
Right.
And
well, some of the traditions with the Hopi and so forth, and, you know, others, you know, like the dog star Sirius, we've talked about this before, that their ancestors come from that star right over there. You know, so we have to understand that, you know, not all the things that Native Americans said were just BS. You know, some of these things weren't just stories. No, they really meant something.
And you froze up.
So did you.
Or either I froze up. Somebody froze up.
Wait, back around we came. I can see you moving again.
Oh, okay. Did I freeze up?
I don't know.
Maybe it was me. It says.
All right. Well, anyway, I just wanted to toss that in there, that there's a lot of history that has disappeared, and some of the mound builders and things are the only remnants of the really ancient societies that were in North America long before all these other folks. So when Columbus discovered America, you know, it was discovered long time ago, you know.
That's
so anyway,
right. Okay. Here we go. This the one?
Yep. Grandfather and grandson and an eagle woman. Here, let me get a sip of coffee and then I'll be ready. Sorry, y'all, for us being a little long-winded tonight about talking about some of this stuff.
It's okay. I think we got a lot covered tonight.
But there's a lot to it, and it's a lot deeper, and it's a lot more, in ways, I think, a lot more spiritual to say that, what, you know, we're descendants of the Atlanteans, you know, ooh. But anyway, 3, 2, 1, I'm giving you a pause before the story. Grandfather and grandson and an eagle woman. Told by John Armstrong and Wagnoyent Cyclone or whirlwind is one of the characters. Gaseondesa, meteor. And Donyonda, bald eagle. Let me get my cursor in the right place. A grandfather and grandson lived far away from any village. All the people of their nation had been carried off. The grandfather was very careful of his grandson, for he was the only comfort that he had. One day, the boy ran into the cabin and said, "Grandfather, I heard something out in the woods crying, 'Kijidi, Kijidi.'" "Oh," said grandfather, "that was a cockadee. That is the first game hunters kill." The boy went out with his bow and arrows, and after many attempts, he killed a chickadee. When he took it home, the old man danced with joy, singing as he danced, "My grandson will be a great hunter. My grandson will be a great hunter." Another day, the boy ran in crying, "Oh, grandfather, I have seen something with 4 legs and a tail with 4 black stripes around it." "That is a coon," said the grandfather. "That is the second game hunters kill." The boy killed a coon, and the old man danced and sang, "Oh, my grandson will be a great hunter. Oh, my grandson will be a great hunter." The next day, the boy ran in crying, "Oh, grandfather, I have seen a strange thing walking on 2 legs. Red skin hangs from its head and it makes a great noise." "That was a turkey," said grandfather. "That is the 3rd game that a hunter kills." The boy went to the woods, and when he saw a flock of turkeys, he ran till he caught one of them. Again, the old man danced and sang, "My grandson will be a great hunter." The boy went out another day and saw a long creature with thin legs and something like the branches of a tree on his head. He was frightened. He ran home and told his grandfather what he had seen. The old man said, "That is the 4th and largest game. That was a deer. When a man can kill a deer, he is a good hunter." The next day, the boy killed a deer. The old man didn't dance or sing this time. It was a solemn occasion. He taught the boy how to dress the deer and stretch the skin, and then he said, "You are a young man now. You needn't run in to tell me what you have seen. Kill anything that comes along. A man that can kill a deer can kill all kinds of game. When hunting, you can go in any direction except the north. Wicked women live in the north, women who have killed many of our people." The young man went toward the south, but he kept thinking about the women who had killed his relatives, and at last he turned and he went north. After a time, he came to a tree that was covered with scratches, like the scratches made by a coon's nails. He said in his mind, "It must be that there are a great many coons in this tree." He threw off his blanket, took a stick and his bow and arrows, and climbed up till he came to a hole in the tree. He looked into the hole and, seeing a number of coons, poked his stick down, killed 2 or 3 of them, pulled them up and threw them to the ground. As he did this, he looked down and he saw near the foot of the tree a beautiful young woman. As soon as he had seen her, she called out, Come down, I want to talk to you. He paid no attention to the woman, but kept on killing coons. She called again and again. At last he went to the other side of the tree, turned himself into a red-headed woodpecker, and went up the tree pecking the bark. When he got to the top, he shot an arrow off towards home. The arrow whizzed through the air, making a noise like a woodpecker. The woman, thinking that the boy was in the arrow, hurried after it. The young man took his own form, slipped down from the tree, put on his clothes, gathered up the coons, and went home. The grandfather was glad to get the coons, but when he knew where his grandson had been, he was angry. "You must not go there again," said he. "If you do, great harm will come to us." The next day, the young man started off towards the south, but when out of sight, he turned and went north. He went beyond the first tree and came to a second tree covered with scratches. He climbed the tree and killed a number of the coons. Then he looked down and saw, sitting on a log near the foot of the tree, the same young woman. As soon as he saw her, she began to urge him to come down. She talked with enticing words. He knew that he ought not to go, but the feeling came into his heart that he wanted to. He went halfway and stopped, and again the woman urged. At last, he went to the ground and sat down on the end of the log. The woman was sitting in the middle. "Why do you sit so far away?" asked she. A young man and a young woman sit near each other when they talk. He drew a little nearer, then she urged him to come up close to her. At last he sat by her side. She told him stories and talked till he fell asleep. Then she put him in a skin bag, took the bag on her shoulders, and hurried off through the air. After a long time, the woman came to the ground, took the young man out of the bag, roused him, and said, "Do you know this place?" "Yes, my grandfather used to fish here." "I don't believe it," said the woman. "Point out something you remember." "There are the poles we put up, and there is the old kettle we cooked in." He willed that she should see those things. He bewitched her eyes. Again, she told him stories till she put him to sleep. A second time, she carried him far away. When she came to the ground and opened the bag, the young man found out that he was on the shelf of a high cliff. On narrow places near him were other men, some alive, some half eaten up. "Oh," thought he, "my grandfather was right. There are bad women in the north." He called to the man nearest him and asked how he came there. "A woman brought me here. Other women brought these other men to where they are. Many men have been eaten up. You and I will be eaten when they come to us." The young man thought how he might escape. All at once he remembered that on a time a great spider had appeared to him in a dream and had promised to help him when in trouble. And he cried out, "Oh, spider, help me now." Right away, an enormous spider was there on top of the cliff, and he began weaving threads for a rope. When the rope was long enough, the spider let it down, and the young man climbed up on it. Then he let the rope down and drew up the men on the cliff, one after another. All the men went home except the young man. He set out for home of the woman who had deceived him. He found the woman living in an old house with her mother, and he said to her, "I have come to marry you." The woman said, "I have a very bad mother. I'm afraid that she will kill you. She sent me to deceive you and to carry you off to that cliff." "I'll try to save myself," said the young man. The old woman slept at the end of the house. In the night, she began to groan and roll around on the ground. The young woman said, "Strike my mother on the head with the corn pounder." He struck her and asked, "What is the matter, mother-in-law?" "I dreamed that my son-in-law killed the white beaver in the lake and made a feast for the Dagwanoyents." "Go to sleep now," said the son-in-law. "I'll do that tomorrow." The next morning, he went to the lake and killed the beaver with a single arrow. But as soon as he lifted it out of the water, the lake rose up and pursued him with fury. The young man knew the water was so poisonous that flesh that it touched instantly dropped from the bones. So he ran for his life. He reached the house and threw the beaver down. That minute, the water disappeared. The old woman was raging. She said, "Oh, my poor son, my poor son. I thought that my son-in-law's bones would be in the lake." The beaver was dressed and cooked. The man invited the Dagwanyents and the Gasiondo to come to the feast. They came. In the house was full of horrid heads with long hair. When the dinner was eaten to the last morsel, the heads began to smack their lips. "A splendid feast," said they. "A grand dinner the old woman's son has made for us. How sweet his flesh was." The old woman was furious. She seized a club and drove the guests away. The next night, the old woman rolled around the house and down to the fire, crying, "Agee, agee." "Oh," said the wife, "this time my mother will dream that you and she must go to the sweat house. You first, then she. Now strike her with the corn pounder." He struck her and then called out, "I dreamed that my son-in-law went to the sweat house, and then I went." "Go to sleep, mother-in-law. I'll attend to that tomorrow." In the morning, the sweat house was heated. As soon as the young man went in, the old woman danced around outside and sang, "Let there be heat to kill him. Let there be heat to kill him." When she thought he was dead, she went in, but she found him comfortable and happy. Now it was her turn to sweat. The son-in-law closed the sweat house. Then he danced and sang, "Let it become flint first at a red and then at a white heat." Right away, the house was flint and red hot. The old woman was burned up. "Now," said the young man to his wife, "you brought me most of the journey on your back. You know the way. Take me to my home." She put him on her back, carried him over the fields and the woods, past the fishing grounds where he had said that his grandfather used to fish, past the trees scratched by the coons, and at last brought him to his grandfather's house, and they lived there happily. The women in this story were eagles. How about that one? I know we're running a little bit long, but there's a story right after this one, and it's really short. So I thought we'd go ahead and do this one. It's like 2 pages, you know.
All right.
So, but anyway, thank you all for being with us. I hope you liked that story. And here's another one. And the characters are the Stonecoats, Frost and Cold, Genoskawa. The Great Spirit overpowers the cold and frost of winter. Stonecoats. In the old time when men got lost while hunting, it was supposed the winter god, Stonecoat, ate them up. Once 3 Senecas started off on the warpath going toward the west. At night, they camped in a deep ravine at the head of a stream. When they had made a fire, a fine-looking man came and said to them, I think it is right to do what I am going to do. I have come to tell you that there are many people, man-eaters, on the warpath. Tonight, they will make their camp in sight of yours. One of you must go to their fire and say, Hello, I found your fire. Where are you going? They will answer, We are on the warpath. The man must say, I am on the warpath too. They will say, Well, we will fight. Then the man must leave them and come back to your camp. The stranger disappeared, and soon people came and camped a short distance from the Seneca camp. One of the 3 Senecas said, will go over there. As he approached, he called out, Hello, I found your fire. Where are you going? We are on the warpath. So am I, answered the Seneca. Well, we must fight, said the chief of the Stonecoats. As the man turned to go away, he saw stone clothing leaning against a tree. The owner of the clothes was lying on the ground. The next morning, the Stonecoat warriors came up to the ravine toward the Seneca camp. They made a terrible noise, for they sang, We are going to eat up the Seneca nation. We are going to eat up the Seneca nation. When they were about halfway through the ravine, they gave a war whoop and moved forward quickly. But that moment, huge rocks began to roll down on them and great trees to fall on them. The Senecas saw a strange man running along on top of the rocks and the trees. Whenever he saw a Stonecoat head sticking up, he struck it and killed the man. All of the warriors, only one was left alive, and he was never seen again. All the time the stranger was throwing rocks and trees, he sang, and the song said that the Seneca nation could stand against anything, could stand against the whole world. When the battle was over, the stranger came to the 3 men and said, I am he whom you call Haiwanio, Great Spirit. I have saved you. I did not make the Stonecoats come, one else made them. Someone else made them. I want you, the Seneca people, to be the most active of all tribes in war, in games, and in hunting. The stranger disappeared, and the 3 Senecas went home. One day, a Seneca who was out hunting in the woods saw that a Stonecoat was following him. He was frightened and he began to run. When he saw that the Stonecoat was gaining on him, he climbed a tree that had fallen part way and lodged on another tree. Stonecoat came to the tree, stopped, but he couldn't see the man, for he couldn't look up. Taking a finger from his pocket, he placed it on the palm of his hand. the finger raised up and pointed to the man. The man was a swift runner. He slipped down from the tree, snatched the finger, and ran off with it. Stonecoat shouted after him, begged and promised to be his friend forever if he would give him the finger. The man, afraid of being deceived, wouldn't go near Stonecoat, but he threw the finger back to him. Ever after this man and the Stonecoats were good friends. The end. Now that's the first time anybody got the finger in a story.
Well, that is
I'm sorry.
true.
It was all I could do to not laugh. And would give him the finger. Hey, would you? Never mind. We all know where that one's going, but give a little giggle, you know. He got the finger.
Yeah. Big Justin's in the house tonight. There we go. He's out on a road trip.
Be safe on your road trip.
As if I'm not back in a month, go on without me.
Do
We
I
got
know where it is?
Boots on the Ground is in the house too. There we go. And so we got, like I said, we seem to go through 2 time zones. We got the ones where we go through the earlies, and then we got the ones we go through the lates. So, but anyway, it's okay. It's all good because that's what we do around here. We have stories and we got information, and I hope everybody learned a little bit about history tonight. And if you got any comments or you know anything about these mounds, if you've been to the mounds and taken pictures, or you got your own ideas about that stuff, you know, send me an email. Let me know what's going on. If you know about the John Smith stories, maybe you got some relatives or related some way or another is in your history, send me an email. Let me know, because I love to dig up stories like that.
Or any other history that may be in your area that's not necessarily printed anywhere. It's like Colomoki Mounds is a state park in Georgia, but unless you know about the mounds and what history there is, you'd go, yeah, it's just, you know, part of the other group. It's not. You know? So some of them did build mounds, but there's clear evidence, where others is like, where did that big sucker come from? You know, who built that one? All right, so tonight's card, I'm already ahead of you, is an upside down coyote.
Oh, we haven't had coyote in a while.
Nope, and it's number 13 in the book. Wait, that's, I was right on time. I went right to it. So coyote is the trickster. Dun, da, da, da. Coyote, you devil, you tricked me once more. Must I sit and ponder what you did it for? There are thousands of myths and stories about Coyote, the great trickster. Many native cultures call the coyote the medicine dog. If you pulled this card, you can be sure that some kind of medicine is on its way, even upside down. So coyote's bringing you a message, right? And it may or may not be to your liking. It's going to be a message one way or the other. Whatever the medicine is, good or bad, you can be sure it will make you laugh. Coyote is the trickster. Remember Coyote, Wile E. Fox. It's the same premise. Coyote has many magical powers, but they do not always work in his favor. His own trickery can fool him. He is the master trickster who tricks himself. No one is more astonished than Coyote at the outcome of his own tricks. He falls into his own trap, and yet he somehow manages to survive. He may be banged and bruised by the experience, but he soon goes on his way to even greater error. Forgetting to learn from his mistakes. He may have lost the battle in some way, but he is never beaten. Remember that. Coyote, Wile E. Coyote, he was never beaten. He come close. He'd been blowed up, smacked, and otherwise, but he never gave up. Coyote is sacred. In the folly of his acts, we see our own foolishness. As Coyote moves from one disaster to the next, he refines the art of self-sabotage to sheer perfection. No one can blindly do themselves or others in with more grace and ease than this holy trickster. Coyote takes himself so seriously at times that he cannot see the obvious. For example, the steamroller that's about to run him over. That's why when it hits him, he still can't believe it. And he stands there and he gets caught by the steamroller again. Contained within the trickster medicine is the humor of the ages. So while you're getting banged up, you laugh about it. This cosmic joke is not just on ourselves, but on everyone else. If they are following Coyote or have strong Coyote medicine, someone like this may be able to convince others that a skunk smells like a rose, but the fact remains, it's still a skunk. Okay, now contrary Coyote. If Coyote appears in the reverse position, then you can be assured that he is going to be contrary and a pain in your side. Look around yourself and watch in which direction he may be coming. If Coyote is approaching you from the outside, be aware of this master of illusion. Coyote may pull you in his spell and take you to a briar patch to pick berries. It will be a painful lesson for you if you follow him. Coyote reverse can appear in your life as a supposed all-knowing teacher, a scam artist, a get-rich-quick business planner, a rare-coring door-to-door salesperson, a femme fatale, a movie producer, a television evangelist, a swampland realtor, a politician, or anybody who wants you to follow their lead. That's the trickster part. Be careful. Coyote is not the recommended business partner or lover. Contrary Coyote may signal a time when everything you touch just backfires. All your jokes may be exploding in your face. In this reverse position, Coyote also signals a time to be aware of the intentions of others as they may deceive you, and to look for the boomerang you threw at another person that's going to come back and knock you from behind. Someone else's trick may be on you, or there could be deception in the wind. Whatever Coyote reversed has conjured up, it could be coming from any direction. Remember, this jokester is always wild. So right now, there's so much deception going on. I did a video early this last morning about the cluster bomb, and they're already being sent over there. And I said last night, I said, they're probably already on their way. Guess what? They were. But the deception could be from around you with people that you know or circumstances, or for me, it's the bigger picture, and that we're all being deceived, and I'll only talk about this for a minute, but cluster bombs are horrible if you see them go off. And why would we, as the United States of America, who are supposed to be so prim and proper and our morals so just, why would we give these things to anybody? Why would we use them at all? We should take them out in the desert and have a 4th of July and invite people to watch them, the munitions go off, and so they don't harm anyone. you know, go out in the Nevada desert somewhere, you know, and let these things fly. But to send them to another country to kill other people, it's shameful to be called an American, and I don't stand beside it. No, we should not have sent him. And that crazy fool that said, well, he actually said, I had to think about it long and hard before I could send these. Now he's a Catholic, and a Catholic who's going to send cluster bombs to kill bunches of people, he ain't really a Catholic.
Well, and see, here's the thing, you know, one thing leads to another. So who's to say that, okay, he's going to send cluster bombs today. Next thing you know, he'd be saying, well, we're going to use chemical weapons now too.
Right.
Because, you know, just because we have extras. Well, you know, I mean, what makes right? You know, and so say we give them cluster bombs. Now say Russia goes ahead and starts using cluster bombs because, you know, they got them too, right?
Yeah, but here's something that I pointed out, and somebody picked it up today. I was like, what? And I mentioned, I said, you know, I remember the Vietnam War when they used, you know, jellied gasoline, napalm, you know, yeah. And how, you know, to get burned alive by napalm, and how it cleared the jungle, and people with, you know, sides of their faces burned off, and, you know, whole sections of their body, because you can't get this stuff off of you, and it burns right down to the bone, and it's horrible. And so I made this, the thing, I said, you know, if you're going to use cluster bombs, why not just use jelly gasoline? You know, yeah. Why not just use napalm again? If you're going to wipe a bunch of people out with those things, and somebody else is going, you know, these cluster bombs are like napalm.
Yes.
Back in Vietnam. And I went, oh my God, there are actually people paying attention.
Well, you know, like I said, you know,
but anyway,
they're gonna go back to carpet bombing and napalm chemical weapons and you know, but that's the thing. If
Agent Orange.
Yeah, I mean, if they start using cluster bombs, then Russia will start using cluster bombs. What, you think Russia's going to hold off and say, well, you guys can use cluster bombs, we're going to take the high road and we're not going to do it, right?
Yep. And my thing to all Americans, and I want to say this very clearly, if it's approximately 120 different countries, at least 100, have outlawed these things. Yeah. So why do we have them in the first place? Period. I want to know, nobody's asked this question. Why do we have stockpiles of these anyway? Why do we have them? So here's the thing. They were made before they were illegal.
Yeah.
And they're being stored, and time's up, stock is going bad, and they need to get rid of them. They need to get rid of the munitions because they've been stored for too long, and they don't want to just take them to the desert and blow them up because they'd lose all that money. So they obviously sent Joe over there to sell these old munitions so they could get rid of them.
Well, yeah. Well, like I said,
it's all about money. But anyway, that's my 10 cents.
No, I totally agree. You know, and if we expect them not to use the same, you know, here we're gonna use the cluster bombs. Well, you can't. And then if they do, what? Then we move in on them and say, you're using cluster bombs. That's against the rules. You know, we all outlawed them, but we're going to use them. Like I said, you know, next thing you know, they'll be using chemical weapons, and they'll be saying, we outlawed chemical weapons, but we're going to use them.
Right. Exactly.
And
it was pointed out by a couple of interviewers that I watched today, you know, catching up on stuff. And I was like, what? And they were going, why do, you know, they're already on their way. We didn't even have the choice to say, wait a minute, we as an American, I don't want to be associated. My tax money bought those things, you know, and you want to give them to go kill other people and possibly children, and no, wait a minute. So there are a lot of Americans who are really PO'd about this.
Well,
and that, you know, that these decisions are made without any of our approval, And we are the Americans. We're we're the ones that are supposed to be the moral fiber of the nation. And they sold us out and sent these things over there anyway, without our permission.
Yeah, I think Scotty Boy has it. We just all get along? And that's the thing. People will get along, but it's the governments that are having the problem. People don't fight like this. Governments fight, like this.
Right. Here's something. And I thought about it this afternoon. They said, and it was on several of them, why are we seeing them? Well, because, they're running out of artillery shells. So instead of sending them artillery shells, we're going to send cluster bombs, because they kill a whole lot more people, quicker. But, so my thought was, so let them run out.
Yeah.
If they don't have any artillery shells, the Ukrainians, God forbid, they were part of Russia 100 years ago and 1,000 years ago, if they run out of bullets, then the war's going to be over. The fighting's going to stop. Exactly. Quit giving them any type of munitions. I'm sorry. The Russians aren't just going to shoot people willy-nilly if you run out of bullets. They're not like that.
Yeah, well,
they're more proud, So, so my thought is, then let them run out of munitions. Let them run out.
Well, the thing is
that'll stop the war.
Ukrainians ran out a long time ago. The Russians are never going to run out. They have their own factories. They're making no matter what happens, other countries are going to, it's the other countries supplying these people forever.
Right.
The Ukrainians don't have any of the stuff to build anything to make that stuff. The Russians do. They're going to win. That's just the end of it.
And it's one of the things that it wasn't an issue until the United States put that guy in as the prime minister over there.
Yes.
The Ukraine, go look at history. The Ukraine has been part of Mother Russia along with all these other provinces. The Ukraine is like Texas, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world's trying to overtake the Ukraine and going to fight Mother Russia. If somebody was trying to take over Texas, wouldn't the rest of the United States kick in? Well, that's sort of the way it is, and we don't understand that because the history of the Ukraine and Russia is centuries and thousands of years old. We don't have a clue what that means,
Nope.
But they do.
They do. They've been at war for years. Anyway, let's wrap it up there before we get too political.
Yep, that's enough. But so we need to pray for these folks, and I hope they run out of bullets, and that'll make that'll be an end of the war, wouldn't it?
It would.
Hey, wait, they quit shelling us. Oh, well, what happened? We ran out of bullets. Well, okay.
The thing is, they're just getting started. Neither side has actually declared war on the other side.
No.
So the thing is pretty soon they'll declare war, and then it'll be a battle. Right now, it's just the pre-battle.
And one of the things that some of the underlying things is like, there are some really evil forces at work within the Ukraine, okay? Yes. And they want this war. They want to kill people. There's some things that are in the Ukraine that we're just not privy to that they want control of. And it's not just the people, it's the place, okay? And resources. They're going to fight for this place to the last man.
Yep.
But it's not the Ukrainian people. It's these militants that are using the Ukrainian people. And and it's an inside thing, so it's horrible and all that, but there's a whole lot more to it than we understand. But then folks still need our prayers, especially if they're going to be throwing out cluster bombs. Lord have mercy.
That's right. Well, I thank everybody for being here. You got a show tonight after this?
Yeah, a short one maybe.
Short one. Okay, go over to David Null's channel and tune in because I'm going to bed.
Yeah,
It's late
yeah,
night. I got to go to work tomorrow.
yeah, we're really long in the tooth this time.
Well, yes, we
For
are. But
2.5 hours. Oh my goodness, this will be one of our longest shows.
Yes, it will.
Well,
Anyway,
I love you all. Thank you for tuning in and allowing us to cloud your memories with all kinds of stuff. But hopefully we've given you something to think about. You know, history and ancient wisdom and elders, they're a lot older than, you know, folks want to give them credit.
That's right. I appreciate
and they weren't
everybody
all
for
savages. God Almighty.
They weren't. Even though he says it in the book, they weren't. They were good people. But anyway, okay. Thanks for everybody for sticking around the whole show that stuck around, and people came in a little late, but I hope you enjoyed it all.
Cheers.
Remember, go out and do something nice, neighbor, for yourself. Take a little time, and remember, be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. I love y'all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers, guys, gals, folks, them and theys.
And